Our opening words are ancient, coming from the Hebrew scriptures, from the book of Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to harvest. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Good morning, everyone. It is so good to have you with us this morning. I'm the Reverend Hank Purse. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and it is just wonderful to have you all with us this morning. Hey, anything new happened this week? Plenty, and in some ways, not so much, but it is good that we are here together this morning. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to pass on the service to our chalice lighters.
Okay, here we go. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, not yet, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek.
Good morning. My name is Charlene Reynolds Santa, and I'm a member of the Worship Arts team, and I welcome you to our virtual Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading's Sunday service. UUCR is a regional church that is, for the time being, virtually serving friends and members from this area and beyond, and where you are welcome to be yourself. Here we strive to create a welcoming environment to nurture and explore individual spirituality, build a committed and loving community, and to heal the world. If you are watching this service during its initial broadcast at 10 a.m. on November 15th, please join us after the service for fellowship. This is a great way to keep connected and to check in with one another by using small group conversations via Zoom. The link to this Zoom meeting can be found in the weekly UUCR newsletter. As we begin today's service, I want to tell you again that you belong here. You belong here, maybe just for the next hour, although we hope for longer. You belong here, and we are grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with us this morning. Now please take a deep breath, get comfortable, and enjoy the service.
Our opening song for November has been Sanctuary. And I bet by now some of you know this one by heart. Please sing along with me. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through with thanksgiving. We are a living sanctuary, all new. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through with thanksgiving. We are a living sanctuary, all new.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sally Lieberman, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm joining you from the community meal kitchen in our sibling church in Haverhill this morning. And I thank Holly Getz for lighting our chalice in Reading. And I'll light a chalice for us in our shared community with our friends in Haverhill, and ask you to join me in our chalice lighting words. We are Unitarian Universalists, a church of open mind, loving hearts, and helping hands. I'm here in the community meal kitchen where food is served most days of the week. Food and community to folks who come in from the neighborhood and from the city. We're making soup today that will be served in the drop-in center tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Sally. I'm Claire Fortune Ladd. I'm the Director of Religious Education here at UUCH. And this morning is extra special because Sally used to be the Director of Religious Education here at UUCH. I bet a bunch of you remember her well. And I forgot to say that my pronouns are she and her. We are now going to tell an old folk tale that many of you know well, called Stone Soup. And I'll be telling the story while Sally makes real stone soup. Once there was a traveler who walked down the path. As he walked, he could see that the fields around the path were brown and dry. As he continued walking, he came to a village. He noticed that no one was outside playing in this village. Everyone was inside their house. The traveler felt hungry, so he went to the first house and he asked if they had any food. The people in the first house said they did not have any food because the fields were brown and dry. So the traveler went to the next house and asked if the people inside had any food. The people said they did not have any food because the fields were brown and dry. And so the traveler went to the third house and asked if the people in the third house had any food, but they said they did not because the fields were brown and dry. And so the traveler went to the middle of town and said, "Good people, since you have no food to share, I will have to make stone soup." The people came out of their houses to see what the traveler was doing. He pulled a gigantic pot out of his bag and he lit a fire around it and he poured water into it. And then he unwrapped a stone and dropped it into the water. This stone soup would taste a lot better if we had some cabbage to put into it. One of the villagers said, "I might have some cabbage at my house." So she went, and when she came back, she had a gigantic cabbage to put in the pot. Said the traveler, "If only we had some carrots and potatoes." Another villager said, "I think I have a carrot or two." And he came back with 3 orange carrots and put them into the pot. His neighbor found 2 potatoes and brought them to the center of the village to put in the pot. This is starting to smell really good, said the traveler. But you know, the best stone soup I've ever had some nice salt beef in it. And once we put the salt beef in, it was fit for royalty. And so, some of the villagers found some salt beef. And others came back from their houses with mushrooms. Soon, there were even some tomatoes in the village to put into the soup. And what do you know? Onions to really help with the flavor. They even found a yellow pepper and chopped it up and threw it in. By the time they were finished, they had enough food for a huge feast in the village. They came together and shared their meal as a community. I wonder where you are in this story. I wonder why the villagers said they had no food to share. I wonder why the villagers shared their food by adding it to the stone soup. I wonder where the spirit of love and mystery might be in this story.
Joining together in community today, we have made soup with a stone in the center, a soup to be warm and to feed hungry people, hungry souls tomorrow morning. At 8 a.m., the drop-in center will open and folks will find warmth, coffee, cereal, and our soup. Let us join our hearts and our minds and hope that our intention of sharing community, love, and nourishment is received by those who visit here tomorrow.
Blessed be and amen. Thank you, Sally, for being with us today.
Good morning, my friends and comrades. I'm Katie McQuaige-Lucas, your intern, and my pronouns are she and hers. Now is the time in our service to pause and to reflect. Will you please join with me in prayer? Infinite mystery, in whom we live, move, and have our being, our words cannot contain all that you are. But we know your presence in our love for one another, in the vastness of sea and space, and in the beauty of the earth. We gather today with many needs, anxieties and heartaches, joys and delights. We look to winter ahead of us in this uncertain world, and we are weary from a long season of animosity and discord. Help us to know that we are not alone, that we have so much that holds us together, even across distance. Help us to look ahead in hope, for we know that as the world turns, the sun will rise and spring will return. Help us also to live in the present with love and care for one another, and to look for the joys and comforts that the dark time of the year offers up as gifts. Enable us to care for one another and to meet the world with open hearts, so that we might be able to live out our faith with joy and courage. within our community and beyond it. May it be so, and blessed be.
Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots holding close, wings setting free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Today's reading is The End by Reverend Lynn Unger. Perhaps you've held this image in your head since you were young. The meteor blazing towards Earth, the seismic shock of impact, the lethal rain of molten rock, falling from the sky, followed by months or years of dusk and winter. Dinosaurs gone. Lush jungles ash. Teeming seas empty. Billions of years of evolution wiped from the earth. Only, of course, not. After all, a paltry 65 million years later, here we are. I don't know what kind of small and scuttling creatures found a way to make it through, nor do I know how. All I know is that there was an explosion of new life, the likes of which the world had never seen. Evolution is the predicate of death. The sentence is not complete. The end of the world as we know it is not the end of the world.
In the final book of the Harry Potter series, there are a number of clues that have been left to him by his former headmaster, the late Dumbledore. And the most mysterious of all these clues is the golden snitch. The snitch, of course, as we all know, is one of the balls used in the magical sport of Quidditch. The phrase, "I open at the close," appears on the golden snitch. This particular snitch, which Harry had won during his very first Quidditch match, the same one that was handed over to him in Dumbledore's will. Harry tries everything possible to reveal the contents that were hidden inside of this snitch once he saw that phrase, "I open at the close." He tried everything to get inside of that, all in vain. There was something inside of it, but what? And what does that phrase, "I open at the close," mean? There is an empty space in the middle of that snitch, which if Harry can figure out what is in there, or if he can open it, he can surely become the wizard that he needs to be to defeat his great nemesis. Many of us feel the same way. We feel that we have a gap in our lives, in our very beings, that if only we could find the right object, we could in fact finally become whole. We could in fact become both the person we want to be and maybe even become the person that others want us to be. To be human is to experience separation. That's where this gap comes in. As soon as each of us has a sense of ourselves, as soon as I had a sense of myself as Hank, I have a sense that there are things that aren't me, right? Whether it's you or whether it's the computer I'm speaking to right now. And because of that sense of separation and and psychologically, there is a feeling that there is this separation, that there's this gap, that there's this thing that is missing. And we need to have that gap filled in order to explain our lives and make everything go together. Something that can fill that gap will make us feel whole, will make us feel connected, will make us feel good. Now, our culture is based around this concept. And everyone has a product that will give you the thing that will make you feel whole. Everyone is trying to sell you, maybe not with money, but trying to sell you something that will fill that gap. Maybe if you look this way, or if you marry that right person, or you divorce that person, or you smoke this drug, then you will be happy. In Hollywood films, there's something known as the MacGuffin. The term was supposedly coined by Alfred Hitchcock. The MacGuffin describes that thing, the object, the device, or event that is necessary to the plot of a movie, and which also motivates all the characters and keeps all the audience interested in as well. You gotta get revenge. You gotta beat the tables at Vegas. You've gotta win that girl. You've gotta get your groove back. You've gotta win the Elder Wand if you're Harry Potter, or the Cloak of Invisibility, or the Resurrection Stone. You've gotta beat Voldemort, right? It's the X that the main character wants and is willing to sacrifice anything for, even their lives, to get. What we never see in these movies, though, is what happens after the MacGuffin is reached. I mean, there's the romantic kiss, but we don't see that same couple a few months later. What happens after the jackpot is hit? After the bad guy is defeated? There's one of the Mission Impossible films where they never even tell you what the MacGuffin is or what it does. They just call it the rabbit's foot. Though at one point, someone refers to the rabbit's foot as the anti-God, which is very interesting because it's good, because if people think that God is the source of everything, then this MacGuffin, this rabbit's foot, this anti-God, reminds you of that gap, right? If God can create everything, then this thing must be able to take away everything. But you never know. You never learn what that thing is or what it does. That's a cool plot device. And of course, religions have their own set of products to sell you, whether it's a God or a personal relationship with Jesus, the Dharma, saints, meditation, yoga. But faith is not about getting something to fill that gap. Faith is about embracing life in the midst of unknowing, in the midst of feeling separated, especially when we are face to face with the greatest separation, which is death. The poem that we heard just a few moments ago talks about death. The poem is from the Reverend Lynn Unger, who for a number of years has worked at the Church of the Larger Fellowship as their minister of religious education. She is moving on from that position, and so this past month was her last issue, where she wrote in the CLF magazine. Lynn is a great poet. I've known Lynn since we were in high school together, and her poetry just keeps getting better and better. The poem that was read was called The End. And like I said, it is in part about death. Lynn's poems have been shared widely and she's really caught people's attention during this pandemic. In her poem this morning, we hear her start off by describing the image that we have all thought of or seen in comic strips, where the great meteor is hurtling towards Earth, and there are dinosaurs down there munching the green. And then it hits, and there's nothing. What does she say? Billions of years of evolution wiped off the Earth. And then in the next stanza, she says, a paltry 65 million years later, well, here we are. Now, what makes this poem interesting is, as like I said, it's her last piece for the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Maybe what she's saying is, hey, I'm out of here. I think there are amazing things on the horizon for me, things that I can't even imagine. Or maybe she's saying, whoa, we are living at a time when things are changing. We don't know what's going to come next. We are changing in the middle of an earth-changing event, and we don't know what's going to happen. What looks like disaster may be a blessing in the long run. Maybe in 65 million years, or maybe in just a few months, something better, more amazing will come out. The last stanza says, evolution is the predicate of death. The sentence is not complete. The end of the world as you know it is not the end of the world. Yes, there is death, but there is something else beyond it. In his first letter to the church in Corinth, the Christian saint Paul wrote this, behold, I will tell you something wonderful, a mystery. I'll probably never fully understand it. We're not all going to die, but we are all going to be changed. You hear a blast to end all blasts from a trumpet. And in that time, you will look up and blink your eyes, and then it's over. On signal from that trumpet from heaven, the dead will rise up out of their graves, beyond the reach of death, never to die again. At that same moment, and in this same way, we'll all be changed. A more modern writer, Rebecca Solnit, in her book, A Case for Hope, writes this in a similar mood, a similar idea. Everything changes. There lies most of our hope, some of our fear. If you take the long view, you'll see how startlingly, how unexpectedly, but regularly things change. Not by magic, but by the incremental effect of countless acts of courage, love, and commitment. The small drops that wear away stones and carve new landscapes, and sometimes by torrents of popular will that change the world suddenly. To say that is not to say that it will all come out fine in the end regardless. I'm just telling you that everything is in motion, and sometimes we are ourselves that movement. We all strive to find that thing that will fill that gap in our lives, because we hope that it will make us whole. It will fulfill us. It will make us perfect. And then we will no longer want, we will no longer hurt, we will no longer be a burden, we will be successful. And then something happens, whether we gain that thing, that MacGuffin, or not. Something happens when we see that what we thought would make us whole is as broken and bruised as we are. It's a traumatic moment, but it can also be a moment of conversion, because it converts us from people who loved only that thing, that that thing that we hope would fill the gap, that thing that we've made into an idol, we can be converted to the realization that even without that thing, we can build something beautiful. In fact, we can only see how wonderful this world can be, not by having that idol to distract us. That thing, the holy thing. It is in our commitment to one another, our commitment to our community, our commitments to sharing our lives with each other. That's where the real beautiful and holy thing is. It's where I pull out a pot with boiling water and I put a stone in, and then you come and you bring a cabbage, and someone else brings a yellow pepper, and then onions and carrots. We find that which is whole and holy in the midst of life, not by running away from life, but there in the midst of poor village, there in the midst of our own lives, there, even in death, there is life. We are surrounded by death, aren't we? People whom we know, folks who are perhaps watching this right now, are hurting. And sometimes we are afraid to hurt them, so we don't talk about that person because we want them to be okay. I recently heard a story about a family who lost an adult son. And for a whole year, no one in that family talked about their loss. It just seemed too painful. And then finally, after a year, someone brought up their name, said, "I can't stand it any longer." And there were tears. And someone told a funny story, and they laughed. And you wonder, after hearing a story like that, I wondered if the suffering was worse when they pretended it wasn't there or when they talked about it. So often we are afraid to open that door, to look into that space, that gap. We're afraid if we do something, say something too intimate, we're going to hurt someone. But if you open your own heart, you realize that you've been hurt by someone and you've hurt someone. We are, as the Irish theologian Peter Rollin says, we are haunted houses. We are filled with ghosts. We try to hide from them and pretend they aren't there. We are afraid that people will see the empty gaps in our beings and think less of us, when in fact we all have those gaps, and we should in fact be brave in showing them off. So we need each other to deal with the hurts and the disappointments. We need each other to make soup with, to live life with, to conquer death with, to heal and be whole with. Even Harry Potter, the most powerful wizard in the world, the boy who lived, even Harry Potter needed his friends. You know, inside that golden snitch was the resurrection stone, which could bring him back to life. But how could someone who is dead use that stone to come back to life? He could only come back to life when his friends saw his body. And because of their bond to him, they desired that he return to life. Harry Potter could not act among the living. Only the living could. And as we know, the real magic in Harry Potter, the real magic that is in all of our lives, is having people around who love you. People around who know the empty gaps in your lives, because you know the empty gaps in theirs. It is only there we put our stones, we add our vegetables to them, we make a lovely stew of the lives that we share together. Amen, and blessed be.
November marks the first anniversary of our Share the Plate program here at UUCR. During the past year, we have donated over $12,500 to 11 different nonprofit organizations by giving away half of the money collected each Sunday to a nonprofit. Our Share the Plate recipient this month is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee's Guest at Our Table. This is an annual fundraising initiative to support UUSC's work with international community of grassroots partners to advance human rights and social justice around the world, and has improved the lives of countless individuals. Traditionally, we launch this fundraiser through our religious education program every November. When we are meeting on campus, children learn about the program in their classrooms and pass out collection boxes during church. This year, they will learn about Guest at Our Table online and will join us for Bread Communion Sunday service to introduce stories of people who will receive the support from this year's collection. To donate online, please use the Donate Now button on the church's website or mail a check directly to the church. Unless otherwise specified, half of the November donations will go to Guest at Our Table. Please give as generously as you are willing and able to support the continuing mission of our church and the Guest at Our Table. Thank you. All of what I'm about to share with you this morning can be found in the newsletter, with all related links in our resource guide. You're warmly invited and encouraged to participate with us in the UU Common Read. A Common Read invites participants to read and discuss the same book, in the hopes that the shared experience will offer us shared language and the basis for deep, meaningful conversation. This year's UU Common Read reinforces our UUCR commitment to follow through on the Black Lives Matter resolution of our governing board from this past June. You can read more about the book, Breathe, A Letter to My Sons by Imani Perry, in our newsletter. There you will also find recommendations on where you can purchase the book, audiobook, or digital download, so that you can participate in our book discussions next January. This book and these discussions will kick off a series of conversations about anti-racism and anti-oppression work, and we hope you will be able to join us. Our Kris Kringle Fair is still up and running. This year, we are able to offer partner church coffee and chocolate sale as part of the fair. The proceeds from the sale of these items will go directly to support our congregation's Unitarian Universalist partner students in the Philippines. In the weekly update from Thursday, you will find a large selection of coffee and chocolate that you can purchase through the fair or by email while supplies last. This week, in addition to our regular online offering and our caring conversations with the pastoral care team on Monday, please check out the Wednesday evening Soulful Sundown, led by ministerial intern Katie. This informal gathering invites us to take a midweek break, to pause, reflect, and connect together in community. Please join us. Thank you for being a vital part of this congregation's congregational life.
Our closing hymn is number 52, In Sweet Fields of Autumn. It's written by early 20th century Californian poet Elizabeth Madison, and it's set to a tune that will be familiar to you. It's one of the versions of Away in the Manger. Since the pandemic, many of us have been taking more time to get outdoors and be in nature, whether it's walking, hiking, gardening. And perhaps we've been noticing a little bit more of the turning of the year and a little bit more of the transition from summer to fall. We may be also thinking about the winter to come. This song gives us some hopeful ideas in the beautiful imagery of what, when we're looking forwards, we might have to let go of. I hope you sing along to this very familiar tune and beautiful words, In Sweet Fields of Autumn. In sweet fields of autumn, the gold rain is falling, the white clouds drift lonely, the white swan is calling. Alas for the daisies, the tall fern and grasses, when wind sweep and rainfall fill lowlands and passes. The snows of December shall fit windy hollow, the bleak rain trails after, and March wind shall follow. The deer through the valleys leave print of their going, and diamonds of sleet mark the ridges of snowing. The stillness of death shall storm over the water, the broad sweep low where the pale streamlets falter. But deep in the earth clod the black seed is living, when spring sounds her bugles for rousing and giving.
Friends, will you join me as we put out our chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts. And here are our closing words. What the caterpillar calls the end, the master calls a butterfly. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace.